Hello, welcome to the first episode of Sense and Nonsense. And my name is Roy P. Tharyan, and this is being aired under the Motown India channel. And today I'm going to start with my favorite subject, journalists and journalism. But before that, let me tell you, if you like this episode, please do give us the thumbs up. And if you really have not subscribed to the Motown India channel, do so now. And please leave your comments below because I'm going to make this show very, very regular, and it shall be pertaining to the automotive industry and everything about the automotive industry, be it CEOs, products, public relations people, everything. And being a journalist with more than 33 years of experience, I have so many things to tell and describe. So stay tuned. कमिंग बैक टू जर्नलिस्ट, ये जर्नलिस्ट जो होता है वो कौन से खेत की मूली है भाई, ये कौन है? फॉर दैट लेट मी टेक यू बैक मेनी ईयर्स. आई एम श्योर यू सीन हिंदी मूवीज इन विच देयर वाज दिस गाय, वो झोला लेकर घूमता था और उसके पास एक साइकिल होता था या एक स्कूटर होता था. ही वॉज अ सिंपल गाय. In fact, a journalist is supposed to be part of the fourth estate. They are supposed to be the watchdogs of society, of democracy. They're supposed to uphold the mighty pillar of democracy. But today they become, unfortunately, lapdogs. And instead of the fourth estate, they're more busy collecting the real estate. So this Jholawala journalist was very different from the modern day journalist. I'll give you an example. वो जब एक इवेंट पर जाता था तो वो सवाल ऐसे पूछता था कि बंदे हिल जाते थे. Let me give you an example. If an old-time journalist or a old school journalist were to go for an event where a building was being inaugurated by a minister and the cost of the building was perhaps around 100 crores. So his first question would be to the minister, sir, ये total project cost कितना हुआ? So he'll say 100 crore हुआ. Then he'll follow it up with another question, मगर टप्पू तो कहते थे कि ये 50 करोड़ में बन जाता. तो he would ask, टप्पू कौन? Opposition leader. तो बोलता है जी, वो कह रहे थे अपने भाषण में कि ये प्रोजेक्ट जो है ये 50 करोड़ में बनना चाहिए था, मगर आपने ये 100 करोड़ में बनाया. इन फैक्ट देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ घोटाला इन इट. द मिनिस्टर वुड गेट इरिटेटेड एंड टेल हिज सिक्योरिटी गार्ड, पीछे करो इसको, पीछे करो, ये परेशान कर रहा है. All that has changed. Today, if a journalist were to go for a similar project, his question would be, sir, how much is the project cost? The minister will say, around 100 crores. So what a figure. You are a genius, sir. I mean, how did you make it in 100 crores? It's amazing. I mean, it's too good a cost, sir. Amazing. I mean, आप बहुत ही महान हो. Sir, आपके साथ एक selfie ले सकता हूँ मैं? That is today's journalists. And that's why they're known as the Godi media. And unfortunately, a good number of journalists today are part of the Godi media tribe. Of course, being an old school journalist, I admire journalists like Ravish Kumar. He's amazing. Barkha Dutt. Then there is this YouTuber Akash Banerjee. He is amazing. Very pointed questions, and he does it with a bit of sarcasm, which is amazing. Very enjoyable. So today's journalists are basically Godi media journalists, and that is perhaps the reason why our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, does not hold any press conference. With due respect to our PM, I must tell you, he's a very intelligent and smart person. In fact, he's killed two birds with one stone. How's that? Number one, he actually doesn't like press conferences. So he knows everybody is a Godi media, so he says, I don't want to talk to them. And second, he cocked a snook at them by actually calling in an actor. Oi, Akshay Kumar jara aana, interview me. And Akshay Kumar, being an entertainer, his questions were typically, sir, aam khate ho? Sir, aam kaise khate ho? Now, this is pure entertainment. And Mr. Modi was indirectly telling the whole tribe of journalists, go take a walk. And that's exactly what he did in that show with Akshay Kumar, where he answered irrelevant questions by Bollywood entertainer. So was it always like this for me as a journalist in the last 33 years? No, things were a lot different maybe a decade or so back. We could ask pointed questions, of course, where you never got the answers all the time, but we did ask relevant questions. I remember the 1990s when I was working with the Indian Express and later on with the Pioneer newspaper as a business correspondent. I got to interview Mr. K. Karunakaran. Now, Mr. Karunakaran was the former Chief Minister of Kerala, and then he was deputed to the centre as the Minister of Commerce and Industry. And in those days, I used to cover the industry ministry. So Maruti Udyog, which is now Maruti Suzuki India Limited, was a government entity. आप लोगों को पता है कि जब मारुति ने जब अपना इनिंग स्टार्ट किया था 1982 में, वो एक गवर्नमेंट कंपनी थी. अराउंड 76 odd person was with the government. I'm talking about the equity stake, and the rest 24% was with Mr. Osamu Suzuki. And that was the time government was the big daddy of Maruti Udyog Limited. Subsequently, as years went by, that equity of Mr. Osamu Suzuki started increasing. From 26, it went up to 40 and finally to 50. And by the time the government stake in Maruti Udyog Limited came down less than 50%, and then it became a private company. And subsequently, after 2000, as years went by, the Indian government walked out completely from Maruti Udyog Limited and became Maruti Suzuki. So it became a pure private company with no representation from the government, with no equity stake. So today Maruti Suzuki is basically around 54-56% with Osamu Suzuki, and financial institutions hold around 20 odd percent. DII or domestic institutional investors hold around 18%. And since it's a listed company, the public owns around a little more than 3% in Maruti Suzuki. Well, now coming back to the interaction with Mr. Karunakaran, I remember उस टाइम एक बड़ा इशू होता था मारुति सुजुकी गियरबॉक्स टेक्नोलॉजी. जब तक कि गवर्नमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स मारुति सुजुकी के बोर्ड पे थे, तब तक दे वर ऑलवेज डिमांडिंग gearbox technology lao. In fact, that technology was held by Suzuki, and Mr. Suzuki really didn't want to give it to India and the Indian company because royalty milta hai na. So, but we behaved as if we wanted it, and it became some kind of a national issue. And that time, I remember interviewing Mr. Karunakaran in his chambers, and he told me, we're going to bring back that. We are going to ask Mr. Suzuki to part with his gearbox technology, and we are going to get it at any cost. And I was so impressed by the gentleman. I said, wow, and हमने report भी लिखा newspaper में कि we are going to get the gearbox technology. Yeah, we are going to get it. But subsequently, in a press conference or a Maruti Udyog meeting, which was a fancy meeting in a 5-star hotel, he was still the industry minister, and he was escorted by Mr. R.C. Bhargava, who was then the managing director of the company. Mr. R.C. Bhargava and the late Mr. Jagdish Khattar were all IAS officers who managed to become the managing director of Maruti Suzuki company. Of course, Mr. Bhargava continues to be a very close friend of Suzuki and continues to be the chairman of the company. In fact, he continues to be the executive chairman of the company. So I remember in this meeting, Karunakaran ji से मैंने पूछा, सर वो क्या हुआ वो gearbox technology का? तो उन्होंने मेरी तरफ देखा, बोला, we'll get it, what's your hurry? But sir, आप तो कह रहे थे कि हरी में ला रहे हम लोग. He got very angry with me and said, what question is this? How dare you ask me? I am a minister. तो मैं घबरा गया. मैंने बोला भाई, upset हो गया बंदा. And all the other journalists were a little in a shock. And Mr. Karunakaran just walked away along with Mr. Bhargava. I remember this very vividly because I remember he was the only person who ever shouted at me. So as a journalist, I asked a question which was relevant, and he didn't bother to answer because by that time the government guys were getting out and they were not pushing for the gearbox technology. So everything had been settled in a beautiful way with Mr. Suzuki. So coming back, we used to ask relevant questions to relevant people, whether it was a CEO, whether it was a minister, but times have changed. Now, as a lot of people mention, it's the Godi media. But when it comes to automotive journalism and automotive journalists, things are very different. We are way beyond the Godi media. In fact, we are Godi media multiplied by 100. We love taking advantage of the OEMs, that is the original equipment manufacturers. And original equipment manufacturers, जो vehicle manufacturers है, they love us, the Godi media auto journalists, because we dance to their tunes. इंसिडेंटली आपने देखा होगा कोई रग्बी मैच में अमेरिका में या कोई फुटबॉल मैच में, वो आजकल आईपीएल में भी होता है. यू फाइंड दीज चीयर लीडर्स, गर्ल्स, प्रिटी गर्ल्स, having a placard or a little attractive stuff in their hand, and they keep moving it, ये कर. इसी तरह हम जर्नलिस्ट भी ये कर रहे हैं. I'll talk about all this as we go along. There are a lot of issues and a lot of subjects to talk about. It'll be very interesting because it's a combination of sense and nonsense. I hope you enjoyed this show, and do write into us and tell us how it is. And as we go along, we would definitely look forward to your encouragement, and we'll surely continue to provide you a lot of entertainment. Till the next time, ciao.